Thank you very much, Irene, and thank you, everyone. And it's a pleasure for me to be part of this panel and share our experiences from PABRA. I wanted to put on a slide mode. It's okay. My name is Robin Buruchara. I am advisor to the PABRA program. I previously was the director of PABRA at Alliance for Biodiversity and CDTO based in Nairobi. But I've also been associated with a number of programs, and particularly TAAT, because PABRA is contributing in one of the compact, the high iron bean, and also previously also associated with the innovation platform program of the Sub-Saharan Africa Challenge program under FARA. What I wanted to share with you is really our experiences with regards to the work on beans and as it relates to the current program under TAAT. Now, as you expect, our contributions are in beans. And the elements I like to share here is really how you've exploited beans to address a couple of challenges, developmental challenges, but then using the links with the markets and the demands of particular products in our effort under PABRA. Now, basically what's PABRA? PABRA Works on Beans is an alliance of 31 national agricultural research systems. And it's really a consortium of 3 networks. That's another link. And these 3 networks links the different partners in PABRA. But beyond the national research systems, we have different partners that constitutes, farm associations, NGO, private sector, universities. And you would ask why? Because of the need to have links and have research developed from research centers right to the end users who are either consumers or farmers who grow them. And the framework is really a partnership framework, which is institutional, looking at bean research and development and an opportunity for investment. So when we talk about investment, then we are talking about elements of, transforming and commercializations of the products generated. Now, beans gives us these opportunities in a number of ways. It's a food crop and widely used in large parts of Africa, but is also a nutritious crop. That's why under TAAT, it contributes to the nutrition, and I'll explain that later. But also regionally and in quite a number of areas in Africa, it's an income generating crop. So it gives those 3 elements, which makes it what it is, and in addition to other environmental impacts. Now, the approach used previously in our work really focused on trying to address the constraints which affected the crop at different levels, primarily at farmer levels. And for example, growing particular varieties resulted in maybe an infestation of a disease or challenges of soil, and research focused, how do we overcome this? But then also noting that there are different interests in terms of, markets, or there are different interests in terms of, interest to nutrition, or simply for food. We had varieties which had different traits. But over time, we've noted that considering this food aspect, the nutrition aspect, and the income aspect, there is a very clear emphasis on demands for those particular products. Now, using an approach that we've had over time of participatory research, it was possible to revise the approaches that we have done and consider, what is the interest of the users, the end users, the consumers, and other actors along the value chain. Then our interest or our approach changed to one where we actually consider the value chain approach, right from defining what is the demand and then coming back to research and say, what do we then develop and how do we develop the technologies that can contribute to respond to those particular demands. And in this, demand could be simply having a great amount of production for food. Now, with the interest of addressing nutrition or addressing malnutrition, what is it that being offers in terms of protein? And we also observed that they can offer micronutrients contribution, particularly iron and zinc, and clearly what it offers for trade in the region. And therefore, our approach became, we want to use a value chain approach, and then using that to respond to those particular demands. In this respect, we considered an approach called the bean corridor approach. Now, in this approach, what we really focus on is that the end defines what we want to develop. Now, this is a value chain approach, but then we have three distinct components, or what we call hubs. We have an areas of production, and we have clear areas of consumption, whether it's something used for food, is a grain used for food, or a value addition, or a processed product. There are consumption areas, or even demand, which is implicit, say, to respond to a product which will address malnutrition, particularly iron and zinc and protein. And then we also have the link between those two, where the beans are grown and where they are used or consumed. Now, using this approach, it helps us now to rethink how should we research respond to what is demanded. And for example, we have a bean which is traded in Kenya or in East Africa, but then it's produced in a number of other regions, in different regions from where it's consumed. So the focus then, for example, in the production hub, we emphasize in trying to define what varieties can be developed, what are the issues that needs to be addressed, what are those constraints the farm have to develop that variety, what is the seed system to support increase of those variety, what is the management approach that we need to link, and how do we then have this extension, or what are other aspects to enable this seed to reach as many users and have enough production, and how do the production organized to be able to produce amount which then need to reach the end users either in urban areas or in the nearby market areas or even exported. And this required then working with different partners. And because between the consumption and the production, there is the distribution mechanism, which we call the distribution hub, where there are elements to aggregate, to distribute, some exchanging services, how the transportation from the origin and to the consumption area. And there are aspects which cut across, like nutrition, policy, gender, and recently linkages through ICT. Now, this is the approach that we're using. And this approach really focuses on how we respond to demand. But in this, what we and an example of this is that in a very specific aspect, we have varieties. If I should use an example, varieties which have very specific demand. It's not any beans. There we have examples of a few varieties which are key varieties that are in demand in the region, locally, regionally, and in some cases, exported outside. These particular types or these particular key demanded products are ones that, as a PABRA program, either in different countries or in different networks, breeding focuses on to be able to develop those products that are on demand, either for markets, either for processing, either for nutrition. And then this helps us to define our priorities. And also, in some cases, we find the priorities are not necessarily for markets only, but still the markets demand that can we have, say, for example, a quick cooking variety. And these are some of the products that we have. And if you can see in East Africa, there are some regions where these are grown and where they are developed, and that the regions we call the corridors. Now, in this, what we note is that by defining this, it's helped to have partnership of actors who facilitate linkages, production zones to consumption areas. And in our partnership, what we have identified are actors like off-takers or cooperative organizations that facilitate organization where link with the production hubs, where products are grown and consolidated and aggregated to commerciable or to sizable amounts that then can be produced and disseminated and transported to the consumption areas. Now, the point here, which is critical, is really that the demand helps to define. But then what does this mean in terms of commercialization? Now, in that process, what you note is that there are a number of opportunities that come in. The demand defines what needs to be done, which varieties to develop. It helps to influence the seed system. It helps to influence the input system. It helps to influence, the management so that we increase productivity. But in that process, there are a number of opportunities and investment which have to be done by private sector that have come in. For example, in harvesting, particularly with a number of groups, we have worked with partners who have developed threshers for farmers. And here we get opportunities of entrepreneurs or agripreneurs who come in and make those contributions. Cleaning services, drying, warehousing, and transportation. We have had opportunities to consider people are interested in value addition, pre-cooking of beans, for example, grinding to make products, and also canning, and then packaging, transportation. What this has generated, having a systemized approach, is these investment opportunities or private sector participation so that they help commercialize that process. And if the facilitation is done so it harmonizes linkages from production to consumption, it does help development of those and helps commercialization and investment of private sector, which helps to pull production from the beginning. But one aspect that we've considered and which is linked to TAAT is the development of high iron beans. Now here, demand may not have been explicit, but it has been implicit because of the demand to generate products that address our health concerns. But in this approach, what we have considered is that have which not only address nutrition, although promotion would generate demand, but also to have products which is marketable and also agronomically superior than others, which then will sustain that demand for growth, not only for nutrition, but also that can be sold. And in TAAT, that's the approach we have used, and we work in 8 countries with a number of varieties now responding also not only to high iron levels in the beans, which are good for nutrition, but also which respond to market interest and the demands. But then the other aspects in this process is to have ways of enhancing the use and the demands, particularly responding to various situations, like in urbanization or usage, particularly of certain products. Now, as I said earlier, we have had to respond and have a number of products, and here is an example of the major, one of the major success in Ethiopia, where the white pea bean, which is with a partnership with the Ethiopian Research Institution and other private sector partners, we've seen the growth of a product which is on demand externally, but that has spurred development of an industry, a processing system, an export setup, and where change over a couple of years, it started out from $8 million a year, and right now is an industry of about 130 million per year, where demand has helped to drive and spur this process. But then the other aspect is really the investment and business opportunity that are linked to the consumption hub. Here are products which have been developed with partners in different countries of processing product, for example, of pre-cooked beans, of having products of flour that are used to develop products that can be used by a range of users and consumers. And this also helps to increase demand of the product, but also helps to turn and have products which can be widely used in the region. Now, the other aspect with this is that it offers opportunity for private sector, agripreneurs, the youth, and some of the SMEs that it generates. Now we have examples of where SMEs are involved in seed business, are involved in product derived from, say, iron bean products or other bean products. We have interest of some of commercialization of agro inputs, canning, and also mechanization. And in other cases, we have also other services, financial coming in, and ICT. The point here, and our example does demonstrate that these opportunities exist and can be generated by having to respond to demand that the variety development process and research does develop products which can be used and be linked to this product. So essentially, the point here is that there are opportunities, and in our case, because of the opportunities that have been offered, is enabled us to explore what are the different opportunities of private sector. But what we see that with this partnership and where we have private sector partnership, it does help to spur that demand, and focusing as a value chain, it does help addressing how research can make a contribution to transform and really to commercialize the products that are developed by research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robin. This is exciting. I'm sure if I gave you 2-3 times the time, you will give us quite a full dose of exciting success stories and examples, because the PABRA example or experience is a good one. We are running out of time and we want to have time for discussion. So my summary for your presentation will simply be the importance of continuously listening and responding to the market whilst ensuring effectiveness of action through relevant collaborations, partnerships, and actors. Particularly, you highlighted on the role of private sector in driving this whole agenda of catalyzing investments along the bean value chain.